Let me introduce myself. I'm Sara Martinez Tucker. I'm the chairman of the Advisory Council for the Subiendo Academy. And I want to tell you, last year when we piloted Subiendo, we thought we were never going to see something that spectacular because it was so special for us. It was a small pilot, just Austin, San Antonio, local area kids. This year when we went statewide, we thought, well, we're going to have some hiccups. Your children have done a phenomenal, phenomenal job. From the get-go, they were not embarrassed to ask questions. They were not embarrassed to talk about their circumstance. They have been bold in what they're doing. I just left the state capitol, where we have 8 groups making policy recommendations, 5 on education, 1 on the environment, 1 on immigration, 1 on health care, and state legislators were asking them questions, hard questions about their recommendations. And one, is anybody here from Houston? So you're elected, you're from Houston? So Senator Ellis was in the room and he said, and he kept asking and pushing questions saying, we're 3.5% of the population, 25% of the users, and every one of the students kept pushing back at him. And he said, well, we need to change. I said, Senator Ellis, they were taught that if anybody asked them a question, they have to find a way to turn it back around to what they want to talk about. So that's why they're all pushing back at you. And I'm thinking, this is a pretty prominent person. So let me just say thank you for everything that you have done for those children that you supported in being in Subiendo. You're going to be really proud of them. And I hope that as you drive back home today, listen to their stories. They did a great job. Great, great job. So thank you to you. I mentioned the cameras. I also want to be sensitive. I can speak English and Spanish. Or there's some folks that would be more comfortable with me speaking in Spanish, and I was born and raised in Laredo, Texas, so I kind of do half English, half Spanish anyhow. So are there people who would prefer that I listen in Spanish or translate for them? Do we have okay. No entiendes todo. Bueno, entonces, so is it all right with the rest of you if I say a sentence in English or 2 and then say it in Spanish? All right. So. Okay, but I live in San Francisco, no practico mucho, así que hay unas palabras que se me olvidaron, okay? So, thank you. I don't know what was said about why I wanted to talk to you, but as I mentioned, I was born and raised in Laredo, Texas. I am the first in my family to go to college. Yo soy de Laredo, Texas, la primera en mi familia que fue a la universidad. I got my undergraduate in journalism and then my master's in business administration. I have one job and one job only, and that's to make sure that every kid that has a dream of going to college can go to college. Tengo un trabajo, solo un trabajo, y es cada muchacho o muchacha que quiere ir al colegio, yo quiero saber qué puedo hacer para ayudarlos, para que lleguen a la universidad. And so I know how important parents are. I also know that when I came to college, my parents had no knowledge. And I missed out on a lot of things because they didn't have that knowledge. And I want to make sure that you have what you need to support your children's dream. Yo sé que mi mamá y mi papá no sabían qué decirme porque ellos no fueron al colegio, así que yo no compartí de mucho que podía compartir. Así que yo estoy aquí, sí, así que yo estoy aquí para aprender qué necesitan ustedes para darle el apoyo a sus hijos. So, the discussion that I want to have with you today really is about what you need so that I can find ways to get you what you need to support your children's dreams. Lo que vamos a hacer ahora, yo quiero escuchar qué necesitan ustedes y a ver si puedo traer soluciones para ustedes. What can I tell you about I know that you've never met me before. I'm trustworthy, I promise you. What can I tell you about myself to maybe create that degree of confidence in you that you can talk to me about anything that's on your mind? What can I tell you about myself? ¿Qué puedo decirles de lo que soy yo para que ustedes tengan confianza en platicar conmigo?
Just say you're from Laredo, that's enough.
Nomás digo que soy de Laredo y es suficiente. Do you want to know a little bit about the work I've done in my career and how I'm here at UT Austin? So as I mentioned, I left Laredo. I got my journalism degree. I was a reporter for the San Antonio Express for a couple of years. And then I came back and got my MBA. I then joined a company called AT&T, and I had a 16-year career with AT&T. I was the first Latina to reach their executive level. I comencé como periodista en San Antonio y luego regresé para mi maestría, ¿así se dice? Maestría. Luego trabajé por la compañía AT&T por 16 años, la primera latina que fue una presidenta de la compañía. Me retiré en 1996. So I'm 41 years old. I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I had an organization called the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. I was the president and CEO of the Hispanic Scholarship Fund. I raised $280 million for Latinos like myself, who were first generation, to be able to go to college, and created a lot of family support programs. Empecé una organización que se llamaba la Fundación para Becas y recaudé 280 millones de dólares para ayudar a las familias y a los estudiantes con becas para ir al colegio. In 2006, President Bush asked me if I would join his administration, and so I served as the Undersecretary of Education for the United States of America. My job as Undersecretary was to ensure that every American who wanted to go to college could get to college. And so I was responsible for all policy and operations for anything after 12th grade, adult education, vocational education, and our system of colleges and universities in the country. Trabajé por el presidente Bush, fue su subsecretaria de Educación, y mi trabajo era para asegurar que todos los americanos que querían ir al colegio pueden ir al colegio, así que tenía responsabilidad para todos los colegios en los Estados Unidos. Obviously, I was swept out of office in January of 2009, así que en enero del 2009 tenía trabajo. Lo que hago ahora is, so what I do now is I serve on the board of directors of American Electric Power and Walmart and the University of Notre Dame, but I love my home state of Texas, and I love my alma mater, UT Austin, and I want to make sure that more and more Texans can find their way to my alma mater. And so what I'm doing for the university, in addition to chairing the board for Subiendo, is finding other unique ways for kids in Texas to experience the university and then to find ways to support their parents. Así que lo que hago ahora, estoy en la mesa directiva de algunas compañías, Walmart, American Electric Power, también la Universidad de Notre Dame, y también estoy ayudando a esta universidad con cómo pueden más tejanos experienciar la universidad, y también qué apoyo le damos a las familias para ayudarlos a sus hijos. Okay. All right. So I guess my, is that enough information about me, Sarah? My family is still all in Texas, and I'm moving back to Texas. We're not giving up our little San Francisco corner yet, but we're gonna move by the end of the year, so that now that my parents have passed away, I'm the oldest, and so I want to make sure that I keep the family together. And so I'm moving back to Texas. Anything else I can tell you about myself, or can I start asking questions and taking notes? Okay. All right. So I guess the first question I want to ask is, why did you support your children's desire to come to Subiendo? ¿Por qué dejaron a sus hijos atender este programa? Tell me a little bit about what you understood about Subiendo and why you supported your children wanting to come here.
Bueno, yo en realidad vi la información en un periódico y me pareció muy interesante porque mi hijo tiene como meta ir a la universidad, especialmente a Business Administration. Y pues pensé que puede ser una oportunidad para que se enfoque más y le den más ganas viendo lo que es la universidad.
So she saw about the program in the newspaper. She knows her son has the desire to go to college, and she thought if he came here that it would be helpful maybe in getting him to focus more and want it more, and then manage his senior year a little bit differently so that he could be competitive for this. Other comments from other parents?
She asked her high school counselor about any camps going on this summer, so she's the one that actually signed up herself.
Okay.
And she goes to medical school in high school, and she initially wanted to be a doctor, but now she wants to follow in dad's footsteps and be an entrepreneur, go into business, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Others, different stories?
We push,
That's
we
okay.
push my daughter's diversity and networking and preparation for college,
Okay.
which I think this was going to help.
Okay. Any different? Yes.
We're from Laredo, and we find that there is a lack of good counseling for our high school students, career-wise, and so we have been looking for opportunities to help our children make wise decisions, and this was one of those opportunities for us.
Okay.
Again, we ran into this program by chance, and not through a newspaper, not through the counselors. And it was through Mr. Lopez over here, who went to some seminar here at UT, and they
it was a
brought
Hispanic Leadership Conference here at UT.
Okay.
And through Mr. Lopez, he told us about it, and both of our daughters are here right now.
I think I met others.
Same here.
I find that interesting. I find that interesting also. We ran into it by chance. And a student last year from my son's school was in this program, but no one knew anything about it. He only found out after the fact that, oh yeah, I did attend that seminar. But the schools, like this gentleman said, or lady, they do not, and I guess, give us enough information, especially, I feel, especially towards minority children, that the help is not there. We have to seek it out ourselves.
So two things that I'm going to say to you with regard to that. Number one, I can't tell you how many of the students came up to me throughout the week and said, I'm going to demand that my counselor let me give a speech in the auditorium about this program, because I want all the kids in my high school to apply to it. So that's one. But two, I'm going to ask you, what is the best way for us to advertise this program so that we get more applications?
Even little newspapers.
Newspaper
ads.
area
if possible. A lot of the kids, they don't have any other way to acknowledge their children, and you'd be surprised, some of the little newspapers, the parents do subscribe just so they can see their kids in the paper, baseball, whatever it is, and they like to see that. They like to, and the kids like to see themselves, and it motivates them. And
you know, we sent press releases to every newspaper, and we sent letters to every guidance counselor in the state, and so that's what's disappointing to hear. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. I think that guidance counselors can be huge advocates for any of these programs and opportunities. So we do get emails from the guidance counselor when there's opportunities that come up, but this isn't one that came up through that way.
Okay.
So my son heard through a friend that this was a neat opportunity to learn leadership and things. And he told his guidance counselor about it, and she looked it up and found out about it, and it wasn't something that came up.
So maybe sending a letter, it just didn't get to enough guidance counselors. Maybe if we do something electronic. So peer-to-peer networking, I mean, if we ask the students that attended this year to make sure they tell their friends about it, and
to do presentations themselves
at
their school.
Okay.
I don't know.
Sara, yes. I think one of the things that would be very helpful, we plan to do this in Laredo, is have the newspaper interview our girls and have a paper come out, an article come out in the Laredo Morning Times, and hopefully they'll really promote this program and say how good it was for them, and parents that have juniors that will be going to be seniors the following year in 2012 will take note of that. The other way I think is an excellent way to get this news out is through the alumni chapters in the cities.
Okay.
We did that when I came to a leadership conference. I took the information back home with me, and I sent it to the counselors of various high schools there in Laredo. We had a press release that came out in the Laredo Morning Times, and even at that we had, I don't think we had very many applicants.
We actually had to send people to different high schools to sit in the cafeteria and talk to students and ask them about it, because I was worried that we wouldn't have the state represented. And I looked at the applications, and it was coming from very few high schools. So I said, we got to do something to get the vote out, as it were. And
I think if the kids come back and they can promote it, not only word of mouth to their peers, but also they can get a newspaper article in your respective hometowns.
Okay.
I think, and if they can really tell how much fun they had, how great it was, that they got a laptop, a notebook laptop, I think that's going to really perk people's interest for next year. And then also the consistency of next year, getting it to the counselors. If we're consistent with getting information to the counselors every year on a timely basis, I think it'll catch some momentum and you'll get more applicants.
Okay, thank you. No, todo. Estoy preguntando cómo podemos asegurar que más gente sabe de este programa, y me están diciendo ideas. los periódicos, también los estudiantes haciendo presentaciones en las escuelas, también los guidance counselors, y lo importante es hacerlo al mismo tiempo cada año para que no esperen la información. I'm sorry.
The other way is, we heard about it through the church.
Oh, okay.
So, being a youth minister, I got the newsletter and promoted it that way, but the youth ministers are also like counselors because we talk to the kids in that grade.
Okay.
So, keep doing it through the church because that's where I heard it.
Yes.
I'm a graduate from UT, and so I get emails.
You look so familiar. Why do you look familiar to me? Maybe I saw pictures of you or something when I was getting my UT stuff.
And so I get emails periodically, and I started the website. And so I came across it on the website and recommended it for my nephew.
Okay.
And so that's how we came across it. And so I think if the information also went out to the alumni so that they can let their family members know, I think that's another good way.
Okay. So Oscar was saying the chapters, but you're saying just we get so many email blasts from the Texas Exes that might be a good thing to do as well. Good, because they're a co-sponsor here, so we'll get them to promote it. También los estudiantes que graduaron aquí, porque ellos pueden decirles a su familia. What information about Subiendo do you wish you would have had? I mean, we put our program out there, but are there questions you had about the program that you didn't get answered until you got here? Or were we pretty good in explaining the program?
Okay. Very organized.
I can't take any credit for that. It's the staff that does that here. I get to fly in.
La intención del programa es también que crezca, o sea, que tengan más niños cada año o tienen un tope.
She's asking a great question, which is what is our intent with the program? Do we want to grow it? Are we going to keep the same curriculum? What is it that we want to do? We're struggling with that. Initially, the founder, a gentleman named Kenny Jastro, who conceived of the idea, had wanted this to be, roughly 175 students, 200 every year. El señor que tuvo la idea de este programa quería 175, 200 estudiantes aquí. Last year we had, because it was a pilot, we had 50, and we didn't know, frankly, how much we could grow and maintain quality. So this year when we went statewide, we thought, why don't we just double the number and see what we can get. Estuvimos un poquito nerviosos en crecer muy rápido, tan rápido. Así que pensamos nosotros, 50 el año pasado, podemos hacer 100 este año. Just watching the logistics of the week, I mean, even right now, last year we had small teams of 4 complete with write up a policy and then have the competition at the Capitol. This year, we would have been doing presentations all day long, and there was so much we had to do the rest of the week that the teams are bigger, they're teams of 12. And so I turned to the woman that you'll meet later, you met Ronnie, Veronica Vargas Stidman, who's the executive director. I said, how do we do it when we're 200? We might have to split up, and the goal really is to get students to, number 1, aspire to be leaders, and then believe that they can be leaders. Number 2, to teach them the various ways that you can be leaders. You mentioned medicine, but then entrepreneur. I had a varied career, so we've had role models speak to them about what it's like to be a leader in politics, in government service, not elected office, in corporate America, in running your own business. And so it's exposing them to different ways to become leaders. And then we give them the tools. A writing workshop, a communications workshop. How do you formulate good policy? What are the issues facing the state, the country? And then culminating in what they're doing today is, can they take everything they've learned this week and make effective policy recommendations? Así que lo que queremos hacer siempre es primero que los estudiantes quieren ser líderes, pero también que creen que puedan ser líderes. Y lo que vamos a hacer en este programa es primero decirle, hay muchas maneras de ser líder. En negocio, en gobierno, y conocieron a gente en todas esas carreras. Y luego segundo los damos, ¿cómo se dice? Los tools, lo que necesitan. Sí, cómo escribir, cómo hablar, cómo poner policy papers, y lo que están haciendo ahora, que estoy presentando, lo que se tiene que hacer para componer los problemas que tenemos en el Estado y en la nación. So the question that we're going to have to do now, and that's one of the reasons we're documenting, is we're always going to be statewide. We're always going to want the goal to be to get more and more Texans aspiring to be leaders and believe that they can be leaders. We're not going to deviate from the tools, which is expose them to what I just described. The question is, how big can we get? And I don't know how big we can get. That's something our advisory council meets in the fall. After we've had this, we review everything, and then we make decisions about goals for next year. We have the funding in place for the next 5 years. That's the good news in this time in the state of Texas. We'll see what it's going to be like to secure the space for more. I'm a little worried that if it gets too competitive and kids get turned away, that we're going to be dashing their hopes about being leaders, especially if there are not enough programs in this state. And with the budget cuts going on, I worry that if they get a note of this, that they think, I don't get local good counseling, I don't get exposure to things, I've been turned away, am I really college material, leadership material? So those are the issues we're struggling with now. Vamos en el septiembre, octubre, vamos a pensar qué vamos a hacer el próximo, qué aprendimos este año, y luego qué vamos a hacer con lo que tenemos aquí para asegurarnos que lo que hacemos no está diciendo a gente en Texas, tú no puedes. What other information do you have about Subiendo? Yes, sí.
Yeah, I noticed. I was able to go to the first half of the little speeches they were having at the Capitol, and some of the kids did not speak. So it's too big.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
And so maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 sessions. I don't know.
So it's funny how some of the groups did it. Some of the groups made sure everyone spoke, and then some groups had half speak and half answer questions, and some had half speak and then whoever had the answer to the question speak.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I know already that we're going to probably have to establish. We wanted to give them as much decision making as possible, and so we let them decide. But I think next year already I'm thinking no, because
they all have
some of the kids that were quiet actually come out of their shell earlier in the week, and now they've gotten quiet again. And I want to make sure that everybody. Lo que dijo es que el grupo es muy grande, así que algunos platican y unos no hablan. Y le dije, yo me fijé que unos grupos, todos hablaron, a unos grupos mitad hablaron de la presentación y la otra mitad contestaron las preguntas. Y algunos nomás no lo pensaban, así que algunos no pudieron hablar. Sí. All right. So can we shift, anything else about Subiendo before we shift about getting more and more students to college? No?
I have a question.
Okay.
Why pick this age group? I mean, why not start some younger?
So that's a great question. Lo que pregunto es ¿por qué este grupo, desde años? ¿Por qué no empezamos más? What we wanted to do, we thought about this, and that was one of the most argumentative topics at our advisory council. We know we've got to get more middle school students engaged in thinking about themselves in college. Our worry, though, was if we get them engaged, and then they don't have any local support, will we make a difference in the state? Lo que pensamos, sabemos que tenemos que tener programas para estudiantes más jóvenes, pero algunos de mis colegas pensaban, si yo Sara Martinez del Laredo, llego y luego después del 6th grade, no hay nadie que me pueda ayudar, no va a ser. Sí, así que the reason we picked this group was we thought, we know if they get to Subiendo, they probably have taken the right courses that are going to get them to college. We know that this might be that shot in the arm to get them to apply themselves, as she suggested earlier. And then we thought if we get the parents involved as well, maybe we have a better chance of getting those students to college. Some were thinking that maybe between the sophomore and junior year, that way we take different courses in the junior year and senior year. But at least for now, we thought, we know that we can track them. And as an example, for some of the panels, we had last year's participants come back, and they've graduated high school and they're starting college. And the questions your students asked about what was that transition like, when did you get disappointed, how did you pick yourself up, we're starting, now we're going to have continuity. We're going to have a cohort going every year. Next year when they come back, they'll have had their first year of college, so they can talk about what it was like to make that transition. lo que sabemos es si los quedamos con este grupo, podemos ver si completan su secundaria y luego si empiezan el colegio. Y también los que estuvieron aquí el año pasado regresaron y ellos pudieron hablar con los estudiantes cómo les fue y cómo les fue la transición. Sí, gracias. All right. So I guess my first question is, what are your perceptions of just college in Texas, the colleges that are in Texas, the colleges that are available to your students? I'm also then going to ask what your perception of UT is. Okay, so ¿qué piensan ustedes de las universidades y los colegios que están aquí en Texas, la calidad? También qué piensan de la Universidad de Texas.
Yo tuve la oportunidad de trabajar casi 2 años en maquetes aquí dentro de la universidad y entonces pude ver muchas cosas y conozco el campus y todo. Me encantó. Yo me gradué en México, pero mi esposo también. Yo veo mucha diferencia. Pienso que son muy buenas escuelas y que mentalizan a los alumnos de otra manera, a los estudiantes. Lo que a mí en lo personal me preocupa es que a veces los estudiantes tienen como meta llegar al colegio, pero pienso que a veces no tienen que ser los top 10 o los top 5 para llegar, y hay muchos estudiantes que se quedan en el camino porque por no tener 100 todo el tiempo en el estudio piensan que no van a poder asistir a la universidad. Ahí sí siento que están muy presionados y a veces se dan por vencidos antes de conocer realmente la capacidad que tienen para llegar.
Gracias. So what she's saying is she had the opportunity to work here, so she feels like she's very comfortable in knowing the University of Texas. She and her husband graduated in Mexico, and her concern in coming here and seeing the situation, there's so much press and publicity around the top 10%, the top 5%, that a lot of kids who might have had aspirations for college might think, if I don't get 100 on every test, then what is the likelihood that I'm going to be able to go to college? And I heard that a lot when I was out doing focus groups in different cities across the United States. What other advice can you give me, or what other sentiments can you share with me about the perceptions in Texas about college and availability for students?
If we're trying to lift up the Hispanic community in Texas, the #1 obstacle for the students, I think, is the price tag of a college education. That's a big obstacle for, I would say, the majority of Hispanics that want to continue their education after high school. So anything that we can do to alleviate or to help the cost or help raise scholarship money, make money available for these kids so that they don't stay on the road. Maybe they won't come to the University of Texas. And I think I've always been impressed with UT in that we think statewide instead of just Austin or just UT. If they don't make it to UT for whatever reason, maybe it's financial, maybe it's because of the grades. Si no llegan a alcanzar a la Universidad de Texas, como quiera pueden asistir a cualquier otro colegio o universidad en el estado. Y yo creo que nosotros podemos hacer todo el esfuerzo para que puedan llegar a esa meta de recibirse de un colegio, aunque no sea de la Universidad de Texas. That's the obstacle to finances.
Yeah, absolutely, and I want to talk a little bit about finances in a little bit, but if you could, so I hear a lot of, when I'm across the state meeting with young high school students, I don't get a sense that, to what you were saying, that kids understand. For some kids, it's going to be a certificate from a community college. For some kids, it's going to be a 2-year degree. For some kids, it's going to be a 4-year degree. For some, it's more. They don't realize that college isn't a one-size-fits-all. Do you get a sense that young Texans appreciate that anything that they do after high school is going to give them a better shot? It doesn't have to be the 4-year degree. It can be many, many things. The Disney company, for example, they don't hire 4-year college graduates, or the majority of their college hires, 90%, are people with certificate programs or people with associate's degrees. They're looking for animators, they're looking for graphic artists, they're looking for people who have artistic talents that they can get with a certificate. Do you think there's enough knowledge out there about careers and how much education is needed for different types of careers? and then what colleges are better suited for them. Should we, I mean, I will tell you that every event that we had all week, the kids didn't want to leave. Even when we had a pool party and it was 104 here, they stayed in the room asking questions rather than go out to jump in the pool. But the one where we actually had to corral them was the college fair. And every college that had a booth talked about the careers that were specialties in their college, and your students just wouldn't leave. They had all sorts of questions to ask about that. And it reinforced in my mind that maybe we don't have enough information, or the guidance counselors aren't putting enough, or the teachers. And this morning, you heard the group, the first group that presented this morning said that one of the reasons the students are so disengaged sometimes from learning is they can't translate, why am I learning this? If I learn this, then what will I be good at for work? And so they recommended that we start, they called it the SWAG program, Student Working Ambassador Group, where you would have shadowing in the high schools so that you could see, well, if I learn this, I'm going to be good at that. And then all of a sudden they connect, because what they said this morning was, shouldn't I know what I want to be? And I'm in high school and I don't know what I want to be, and so I must not be destined for college. And what they said was, bringing that to them, connecting learning to the real world, kind of reinforces that it's okay not to know. And it's okay to explore and go to college to explore. So, lo que estoy preguntando, ¿ustedes creen que los estudiantes en Texas saben qué es la posibilidad del colegio? No tienen todos que ir al bachelor's degree o master's, pueden ir al community college. Hay muchas cosas que pueden estudiar que no necesitan 4 años. Y quiero saber cuánto saben los estudiantes de aquí, de los caminos diferentes a la universidad. Y si tenemos que hacer más para educar la población en Texas para saber qué es el colegio y qué son las posibilidades del colegio. Do we need to do that in Texas more? Do you think there's a good appreciation for connecting what you're learning, what you're good at, and what careers are possible from that? Is that something that's of interest, do you think, to young students?
I think that would be very interesting to them, because they need to know what they want to achieve, and at the same time they have to have a feel of what it is outside. I think there's just a disconnect that the workforce is out there, but at the same time it's not translated back to the schools.
Okay. So doing that conversion would be helpful, keeping students engaged. Okay. Were you going to say something different, or?
Well, yeah, a bit different. I don't know if you all noticed that most kids end up doing what their parents do because they've been exposed only to that. And more and more people are actually disappointed with their careers, don't like what they're doing because it wasn't really for them, but that's the only thing they were exposed to. And so by doing something like that, by seeing different types of careers, it gives them the opportunity to find out what they in their heart feel is good for them, and would make them happy and have happier people that are not disgruntled employees.
So, dos cosas. Primero, que los estudiantes no saben que es posible con la educación. No saben.
Si creen que si no son los primeros, no van a poder.
Sí, pero también lo que están diciendo es, si no sabes cuáles carreras están, y por eso
más
sí,
cómodo,
así que conectar lo que es el trabajo y lo que necesita para el trabajo con lo que se está estudiando es una manera que los estudiantes pueden decir, es para mí, yo sí puedo.
Lo que yo pienso que hace falta, por ejemplo, la consejera, ellos vienen y dicen, yo quiero encaminarme en medicina o en business o en estudios sociales, y la consejera solo hace eso, pero en realidad que los maestros pudieran en determinado momento, como a los atletas, a Gabriela Guevara en México la descubrieron jugando básquetbol y ganó una medalla olímpica, o sea, de México, que son de las poquitas que tenemos. Pero su entrenador la descubrió y le dijo, ¿qué estás haciendo jugando básquetbol? Tú deberías de estar corriendo 100 metros o 400 metros. Y la llevó a las Olimpiadas. Y entonces yo pienso que también tenemos, que les hace falta en high school que los maestros como que fueran un poquito perceptibles, para que a lo mejor a mi hijo le gusta administración, pero quizá él estaría mejor estudiando estudios sociales, sacaría más sus cualidades que administración o que medicina o algo. yo nada más siento que por ahí, para que ellos también estén más seguros de lo que pueden realmente estudiar y con lo que pueden sacar una carrera.
So she's kind of making your point, and I'll translate your point first, and then I'll translate what she just said. Lo que dijo ella es, muchas veces los estudiantes no saben las carreras, nomás es lo que dice mi papá o mi mamá, y luego estudian para eso, y en realidad no le gustó. Así, por eso y no están contentos. And what she's saying is, her concern is, the guidance counselors kind of take the lead from the student. If the student comes in and says, I want to be an engineer, a doctor, they'll just tell them how to get there. They don't really counsel them on, based on what I've seen about you, these are things that you should explore while you're in college. And she gave the example that Mexico has a few gold medals in the Olympics. And this one young woman who was a basketball player, her coach actually said, what are you doing playing basketball? You really should be a track star. And got her into track, and that's where she excelled. And she might have been good at basketball, but this coach knew enough. And so if in athletics, we're able to have coaches discern what is this athlete best at, we should be able to have either the teacher or the counselor say, what is this student good at, and maybe I should expose them to those different things. That's one there.
I wanted to say that regarding like students in high school, like don't really know, or they think like, oh, I'm going to study business, so you know, they don't really know that when graduates from college, like when they enter the workforce, most of them won't go into what they actually studied, so they actually don't even, I mean, a lot of them don't, you know, well, I studied business, but I'm going to do, you know, this other thing, and it's not like so specific. And I think like a lot of high school students lack that. I think that when they think like medicine field, they don't think of all the other, you know, besides nurse and doctor, they don't think, you know, oh, there's so many other things that I could do, or business, or, you know, psychology, or, you know, all those liberal arts majors also that, you know, can lead you to so many things. I think college students lack that, I feel.
Y dice también, muchos estudiantes piensan, si estudio negocios, entonces tengo que hacer esto. No saben que hay posibilidad para cambiar y usar lo que aprendiste aquí en la universidad en otras carreras. Así que dice también tenemos que demostrar que es posible con diferentes cosas, de diferentes disciplinas de estudio. All right, so let me transition then to you. Oscar mentioned financial resources, and I, as someone who had to beg, borrow, and steal, and work 3 jobs, I didn't steal. Boy, that came out too quickly. And then as someone who, much later in her life, was responsible for federal student aid, and I saw how few of the students that are eligible for aid even apply for aid, I realized we have a huge disconnect. Lo que dije, yo sé, ahora vamos a hablar de lo que necesitan ustedes para ayudarle a sus estudiantes a llegar a la universidad. Yo sé que yo no tuve dinero cuando yo estuve aquí en la universidad, y cuando trabajé por el presidente, yo tenía una operación que se llama Federal Student Aid, que es las becas, los grants y los préstamos del gobierno, y yo vi las aplicaciones, y mucha de la gente que merece ayuda no aplica. Así que, what is the thing that we can do to get more information to families? Or what's the best way to get information to parents about all the aid that's available to your students, both from government and, as Oscar mentioned, from scholarships? What source would you trust to get information about financial aid that's available for your students? Who would you trust to give you the information?
The best way is through the schools.
Schools.
But that's where it's falling short.
Okay.
Some school districts are very
good. Good point. So I want to make sure the schools. I, in my mind, was thinking the colleges need to get information to the applicants. You said counselors. So were you meaning local schools?
Sure. The high schools, I think, is the best way to get the information to the students and to the parents. I know that.
Can I push back a little bit?
Yes.
So when I did my field work, when Alex was here last summer and I was traveling all over the state, what I'm hearing is, and I know because I work with all colleges send a ton of information to schools. What the students and parents told me was that they had to pound on the door with the counselors to say, what's available for my students? There's some sort of block that's happening, and a lot of kids are not getting information, much like this program.
The best way should be through the schools.
Okay.
It's not the best, it's not how we're getting the information, but it should be through the schools, through the counselors. It should be. It's an easy fit.
Why
The
isn't
kids
that
are there
happening?
5
You
days.
know, I don't know why it's not happening. I'm going to tell you 2 stories, and I don't mean to make this take these 2 stories and make a generalization about every person in Texas. But the first story I'll tell you is the saddest thing I heard when I met with 14 and 15-year-olds across the state of Texas, is they can tell by the way their guidance counselors and teachers treat them whether they think that they're college material or not.
Absolutely.
And the kids said to me, they may get up in front of the auditorium and say, well, all of you should go to college, but the way they treat you, the way they make time for you tells you whether they... The second thing I'll tell you is I then had focus groups across the state with guidance counselors. And I kept trying to tell the guidance counselors, my job is not to recruit your kid to UT Austin. As the point was made earlier, I want every kid in Texas to go to college. They can't all come here. And there are many of different schools out there. What can we do to get more students to want to go to college? They kept taking it back to, this is how you have to treat me to get me to recommend my kids there. I said, okay, I got it that we haven't done a good job. I get it that A&M does a better job taking care of you. That's not my question. My question is, what can we give you so that you can see all your kids? I couldn't get them there. It just, you know, this is what you can do for me to get me to recommend more of my top kids to your university.
So the principals aren't guiding the counselors properly?
As I said, Houston, McAllen, San Antonio, Dallas, El Paso, I'm forgetting everywhere I went. It was hard for me to get the people I met with to do it.
Because that's what counselors are for.
So that's, okay, so I guess that's my point. I have access to you directly here today. We know what's been going out. We know that it's not getting ultimately out. And so I'm trying to say, is there a different way that we can get information to you? Can I take a few minutes just to catch my colleague up here? So, ellos dicen, las escuelas, los guidance counselors, ellos tienen que tener la información y dar a los estudiantes. Y lo que estoy diciendo es, pero no está pasando. Así que si no está pasando, ¿qué podemos hacer aquí en la universidad para asegurar que ustedes tienen la información? And so I'm asking for ways here, and so now I'll come back. You've had your hand up for a while, and then I'll come to you.
Well, do you, I'm sure you have a link where, you know, you have, maybe you can put notice there, maybe the parents can put their addresses, email address, and maybe you can send it through that way.
And
because the counselors don't, when I went to school, college was not offered to me. It was, do you want to go to the Army? That was the only thing that was told. And I live in Lockhart, so it's a very small town. So we didn't have all this exposure. No one ever told us, you know, and my parents both never attended college. It wasn't pushed to us. So there's a lot of older parents that, you know, when you go to school, they don't push it, so you don't know, hey, I do need to go to college. So you have to take that on yourself and find the resources. So I have she's going into sophomore, and I told her, because she told me, what if I don't want to go to college? And I told her, you don't have a choice.
Well, I'm glad you did that, because kids say, the kids that are making it, when I ask them, why are you making it, others, they say, because in my family, it isn't si vas a la universidad, if you go to college. In my family, it was cuando vas a la universidad, when you go to college. So maybe I should cut to the chase.
Maybe town hall meetings or something.
Okay, so thank you for saying that. I have an idea that President Powers is intrigued by. I know that when I was doing my field work and I was meeting with parents like yourselves, young, well, you probably have young students as well, but these are parents who mostly had kids in the middle schools that I was visiting. Those that had older kids that had come to UT, sometimes they would interrupt me and take over the focus group and start talking to the parents about how they did it. And, you know, forget what Sara Martinez Tucker was saying, that was a more credible source for them. Porque estoy diciendo cuando platiqué o hablé con padres y madres en el estado, cuando había una persona en el cuarto que tuvo un hijo o hija que graduó de aquí, ellos they took over, so se dice eso, y lo que dijo ella o él, todos tomando notes. Y lo que decía yo es, bueno, tenemos confianza en ella o no. So I have this notion to create a Longhorn Parent Ambassador Corps. And I would love it if when their parents come to orientation to drop off their kids, instead of just doing an orientation, particularly for those that are returning students, could we take them through training and give them our burnt orange uniform, which we all look so good in, and then have parents sign up to do town hall meetings at local schools, and then report back the types of questions that they're getting. So mi idea es, cuando los estudiantes están empezando, tenemos orientation aquí por una semana, y muchas veces lo que las madres o padres que los traen a los hijos, les damos una orientation para ellos, pero yo pienso podemos tener un ambassador, embajadores, los padres de los estudiantes, si ellos pueden dar pláticas en las escuelas o para educar a los padres. Sí.
Nos informen.
Sí. And so my question is, do you think that's a good idea? If you think it's a terrible idea, just tell me to shoot it down. But right now, and the amazing thing for me was how proud these parents were to get up and say, well, I'm a Longhorn parent, and let me tell you what it's like. And this one woman said, well, no, and she was saying it in Spanish, I want my kid out in the sticks. I want my kid in Lubbock or in College Station where it's safe. I don't want them in crazy, keep things weird Austin. And the mother said, but they have this taxi service, and you call this taxi service, the taxi will pick you up and bring you. And then it relaxed her. She said, oh, okay, then sure my daughter will be safe. So lo que estoy diciendo también, cuando los padres tienen pregunta, está muy loco Austin, tenemos confianza en mandar a nuestra hija ahí, o es mejor mandarlo en un lugar que
esté más tranquilo.
Sí, y la madre dijo, no, pueden hablar en un taxi, así que no hay peligro para los estudiantes. Y anyway, so I think, but more than anything, I saw how proud they were to say, I'm a Longhorn parent, and I have an answer for you. So I thought, why aren't we tapping into that? Lo que estoy diciendo es, la señora que estaba hablando, yo soy I'm a Longhorn parent, y el orgullo que tenía en ser yo tengo tú tienes preguntas, yo te puedo contestar.
Bueno, yo pienso que es bien importante que los papás se involucren, y sobre todo con la comunidad hispana, porque yo cada año, desde que mi hijo entró al primer año de high school, que ya va al último, siempre que hablaban que había orientación para padres, para que empezáramos a ver lo del colegio y todo, éramos, sin mentir, máximo 10 papás. Siempre, todo el tiempo. No sé si a lo mejor nosotros, los 10 que sí vamos, tuviéramos que tratar de hablar con los demás que no van, para jalarlos y que no lleguen al último momento a ver qué voy a hacer y que pues ya tuve.
She's got, can I translate? So what she said was, she's noticed, her oldest is now going to be senior, I guess the one that's here now, and all throughout his high school, whenever they've had events that also involved parent orientation, it was the same group of 10 parents that would show up to all the events. And so she's wondering if the 10 then have materials to go, kind of poke the others and engage them, that maybe they could have started getting momentum so that more parents prepare along the way, rather than rushing at the last minute to say, what do I need to do? And then you may not get your student everything that they should have access to.
I just wanted to say that A&M does that because they did that last year with my daughter who was a senior at that time. And they held it in what we call the mid-valley. And so there was a lot of valley students, in a room twice as big as this. And they did,
And it was parents?
It was parents and students.
Parents and students, okay.
Interested.
All right, yes.
Do you guys ever go to college fair day? Because I think my 8th grader went to one, and then my sophomore, junior went to one also. So
yeah. We have outreach centers and we have satellite admission centers, and that's all their job is, to make sure that when there are opportunities like that they go set up a booth and talk about it. But they're dealing with students mostly. If they set it up in the evening, then parents come and they're able to do that with parents.
Yeah, well, it's this one in my district up in Garland. It's in the evening at the special event center.
Okay.
And the parents take the kids.
Right.
And I've been to a couple of them, but I've never seen a booth for Subiendo.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not Subiendo. We don't. The university does. Subiendo, we don't have the resource to do that.
Oh, okay.
We have a team of 2.5 people here in Austin, Texas, and it's that 2.5 people that manage us, the advisory council, with our strong opinions about what it should be, and then implement and do it here. So no, we don't. What I'm trying to do is create, really, it's 3 speakers bureaus: parent, current student, and alumni speakers bureaus, to have a trained group of people who are all going to be delivering consistent messages across the state in their geography. And then ultimately, I'm hoping to do like an Amazing Race challenge, on enrollment yield. You know, once we tell you who's been admitted in your area, who can get creative about getting more of those admits to enroll here at the university. So those are the projects that I'm working on right now, and that's why I'm so grateful that you're willing to spend time with me to tell me whether these ideas are noteworthy or how we can make these ideas better.
I was going to suggest also, I work for a service center, the Education Service Center in El Paso, and her daughter's here through our program, through the Migrant Education Program. I'm a social worker there, but we have teachers that also go out and they work with the guidance counselors, and it's the same thing. We get that, you know, they don't have time or to really work with us that much, but we still meet with the students. I know it's not all the kids in the school, but you know, the kids that qualify for our program, we meet with them individually, and maybe that's another resource to send information, because we also have parent meetings where we could even provide that information to them if we could be somehow trained, I guess, or given that information to provide to them, and then they can, because they run their parent meetings as well.
Okay.
So they could kind of train themselves, and I mean, we reach all the districts because we're at a service center. We can kind of provide assistance to all the districts in our region, and we have quite a few. And so where we can disseminate information that way, maybe about programs or financial aid or things like that, that we could get to them. Rather, so I guess in an indirect way through the guidance counselors, but, you know.
Lo que dice ella es, hay agencias que le dan servicios a la comunidad. Si le damos informaciones a ellos, ellos también pueden ayudar a los padres que van al service center en esos lugares. Other than financial information, and information about state aid, federal aid, and then scholarships, what other types of information should these parents they're going to be representing? And lo que no te dije, también vamos a tener 3, ojalá, speakers bureaus. Primero, estudiantes y sus padres, y luego los que ya graduaron de la universidad para hablar con estudiantes y con familias. Así que, what other information, in addition to financial aid, should we equip the parents, the students, and or the alumni to provide other parents in your areas?
¿Cómo reparten las becas? O sea, por ejemplo, como estaban diciendo, AT&T tiene dinero, Target tiene dinero, pero ¿cómo lo distribuyen? ¿Qué criterios usan para decir este estudiante va a recibir beca federal, a este le vamos a dar de McDonald's? No sé, ¿cómo reparten el dinero?
So she's saying that in addition to talking about aid, state aid, federal aid, that there should be information about how scholarship funds are distributed, so that you know which ones your student might be competitive for and which they shouldn't even bother. I should probably tell you that there is a national service that does that. It's FastWeb, fastweb.com, and when you go to that website, it's a questionnaire, a short questionnaire that students fill out, and then it kicks out all the scholarships that you're eligible for. So you ought to make sure that you go to fastweb.com and fill out the questionnaire. And hay un website que es FastWeb, fastweb.com, y tiene un questionnaire, eso no sé cómo se llama.
Una área de preguntas.
Sí, y pones y las contestas y te dice todas las becas que
con las que
sí. Okay. So make sure you do that. All of us need all the help we can get to afford a college education for our kids. What other information besides financial? Is there good information out there about what courses you need to take in high school? Is there good information out there about the college application process? Is there good information out there about what college is like? What else? What other pieces of information or areas of information should we equip these parents or students or alumni to be able to help parents?
Maybe some way to help the kids detach from the parent, because when my son was in middle school, he thought the whole family went with him to college. And I was like, no, we don't do that. And so the parents, the kids have an apprehension there, a serious apprehension, and then I explained to him, that's why sometimes you don't understand, wow, this was the smartest kid in school or way up there, but they came home because they were homesick, and so I don't know how you can get that information or how you can train the kids to talk to them, but those fears are really real to them.
I think things like this help.
Like this Subiendo.
This Subiendo. They're here for a week.
they know they can make it. They know they can survive. You know, things like this where they start in kind of training wheels, get them away for a week, 2 weeks, and they understand they can fit in, they can make it. I think is very helpful.
I have to chuckle because my husband and I were visiting my sister. My sister lives in Dallas and she's got 2 kids, and my husband and I took the boys to a movie, and they were arguing about what college was better, and my 7-year-old said, "I'm not going to college." And I said, "James, why are you not going to college?" And he says, "Because I'm not moving away from mommy and daddy." And my husband said, "Oh, James, I promise you, by the time you're 15, 16, you're going to want to get as far away from mom and dad as possible." And so I didn't think anything of the conversation, right? A week later, my sister calls me, and she, very chispa like I am. She said, "What did Greg tell James?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "James was crying the other day and I couldn't get him to understand why, and Uncle Greg told me that I was going to want to leave you and Daddy, and I don't know why. Uncle Greg says that I'm going to want to leave you and Daddy." Ella dice que muchas veces los estudiantes creen que no pueden ir de su casa, y les está diciendo que mi esposo y yo estamos visitando a mi hermana y tenemos sobrinos. Y estaban peleando del colegio, y yo les pregunté dónde van a ir al colegio, y mi sobrino que tiene 7 me dice, "No, yo no voy". Le dije, "¿Por qué no vas?". "Porque yo no me quiero ir de mi mamá y mi papá". Y me le dijo mi esposo, y no pensé nada yo, "O vas a tener cuando tienes 14, 15, te vas a ir muy lejos de tu mamá". Bueno, pasó una semana, me llamó mi hermanita muy enojada. "¿Qué está haciendo tu esposo a mi hijo que él no va a querer vivir con nosotros?". Ay, déjame explicarte. Pero, I'm sorry, so now,
mi hija tiene 2 y dice que sí se ve cuando voy al colegio no va a vivir con nosotros.
Oh, okay. She's saying her daughter at age 12 is already saying, "I'm not living with you when I go to college." I actually hear the opposite from the students. What I hear from the student, and what we heard a lot, sorry, without getting specific, what we heard a lot this week is, "My mom and dad don't want me to leave home. My mom and dad want me to stay close to home." So, lo que vimos esta semana fue, no que los estudiantes no se quieren ir, pero mi mamá y mi papá no quieren dejarme ir. Así que, so what we're hearing is that, and my mother, God bless her, I know she wanted the best for me, but she was really angry with me that I decided to come to UT, and rather than, stay in Laredo. And then when I moved to Minneapolis for my first job, the way my mother took it was, "What did I do to make you so angry with the family that you want to go to the other side of the United States to get away from us?" So I guess I'm asking you, do we need to talk to parents a little bit about how to maintain that relationship with the kids? Always come back. They don't leave forever. I mean, I visited Laredo all the time until my mom passed away. But they don't know that. And so I guess let me ask, how much of an issue is it with the people you know in the areas that you live, parents not wanting their kids to go? Yes, sir.
My daughter, she's going to turn 17 this year. I'm like really overprotective of her. So I cry when I send her over here. I'm a big guy. First time she's been away from me. Traveling with a family, sure, grandparents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's different. At first I was, is it safe? Is it not? We live in San Antonio. Her mom's a police officer, so like, what do you do? You hear all the stories every day, every night. It's like, is it, safe? And I think a lot of parents see that. It's not so much as letting them go, the whole measure of, are they safe?
Are they safe?
Are they going to be
I
safe?
think too, I'm like you, our daughter is 17, is 16, no, she's 16. I just had one to go to, okay. She's 16 and she'll be 17, so she'll graduate at 17. And we're like, okay, is she mature enough to go away from us and, make sure that, she was kind of nervous about coming here because not knowing anybody, but oh my gosh, she got right into the swing of things, but when she graduates at 17, is she ready to make all those decisions when we're not there with her?
Eso están diciendo, también no es que no quieren dejar, va a estar en peligro. Así que están mortificados que a lo mejor si no están allí, van a estar en peligro. Y también dice la otra señora que también su hija es muy joven, así que tiene 16, va a completar secundaria cuando 17. Tiene la maturidad para vivir sola y no estar aquí con la casa. So, the maturity level, it's the safety level. Yes, I'm sorry. I'll swing around this way. You, and then you. Okay.
I think getting the information about college applications, financial aid, I think that's great for the students, but I think they also need to be taught about how to succeed once they get to college, how college life is going to be, what they need to do to be successful, because they can do all the right things to get there, but if they get here and they don't know what to do once they're here, then we're back at square one. So I think that needs to be incorporated as well.
Good point.
More information on the admissions criteria. I think right now people think if you're not top 10%, I'm not going to apply. But if you're not top 10%, you know, what can you do? What to include in the application? I play basketball, I do this. All of those things, I wish forever ago.
Yo pienso que puede haber también líderes que no sean del 10%.
You know, how to market yourself. You know, how to make your best information, how to coaching them, and it's not all about the grades.
Okay. Se me hace que entendiste porque hablaste cuando
Es que entiendo mucho.
You.
I was going to say maybe some education about that there's not just one path. Like they don't have to just go straight from high school to large university like UT. They, you know, if they're not ready, they're younger, they don't know what they want to do. Maybe a community college, maybe one of the smaller campuses for a little while. You know, they could, and maybe UT's never the right school for that.
Okay.
But that there's more than one path, and maybe there's, you know, if they need to work to have a family or something, you know, maybe you can work and go to school. You know, some more education, you have a whole spectrum of opportunities.
Okay, and I want to come back to that a little bit, but I think you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I graduated from UT in May, and when I,
congratulations.
Thank you. When I'm the first in like my entire family, so when I first was thinking about coming to UT, my mom, I remember, was really freaking out, and it kind of scared me. Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. And she was like, well, TCU is right down the street, you can go there. And I applied to TCU just because I wanted to make her happy, but I knew that I wanted to come to UT. Like, I knew that this was going to be my home for the next 4 years. And so I think it was, and I was 17 too when I came to UT, so that I wasn't of age yet. And I think it scared me more and it confused me more when my mom would be like, well, are you sure? Like, you know, and you know, what if, and even when I was already at UT, like my first semester, you know, she would ask me questions like, are you taking the right classes, and are you doing what you're supposed to do, what time are you going to bed, and what are you eating, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, like you're confusing me, like I don't even know what do I really want to be a psychologist, like what am I going to study, should I get out of the business school, like should I go back home and transfer to UT on Arlington, but I really want to be here, like can I do this on my own kind of thing. And then it was like the transition where I felt like Fort Worth was always going to be my home, but I was making Austin my home now. So my mom didn't really understand how much I loved Austin. So I think maybe talking to parents, or maybe like first generation college students, like talking to parents about their experiences, because now you can ask my mom and ask her if she wanted me to go to TCU after all, and she's like, oh my gosh, no, like I'm so proud that I'm a Longhorn mom. And you know, like 4 years later, it's a completely different, you know, look. So I just think, you know, just supporting your students and, you know, everything that my parents instilled in me, like I use that, and, you know, just not to be afraid to let them, like, go and explore on their own and make their own mistakes in class, and, you know, just doing all that good stuff. Like, I think it, you know, everybody's, you know, going to do that, so.
See, I figure there's nothing, you know how they say there's nothing stronger than a recent convert. So I figure if your mom's a recent convert, then I ought to model it up and then, you know, use it in some way. Yeah. Others, yes, sir.
About the top 10%, my daughter was not in the top 10%, and she got into UT, but I wanted to bring some reality to the numbers. We're down from the valley, and in that whole area, I think, down from San Antonio, however the admissions office works, that's located down there, whatever area they encompass, there was only 7 students on the wait list to get into UT that were not in the top 10%. My daughter got in, she was the first one on the wait list. But she went to a high school, I think that's, you know, pretty highly ranked, I think it's number 32 in the nation, and there was no way she was going to be in the top 10%. It was very, very competitive, and she thought, you know, Dad, I'm taking all these hard courses and it's going to work against me.
Right.
You know, but you know, I don't know if everybody realizes that if you're not in the top 10%, it is almost impossible to get in here. And then once you get in here, your choices are very limited as to your major, because the guidance counselor told us down there, the UT guidance counselor at the admission said, have your daughter, if she wants to go into the business school, don't apply to the business school. Don't apply to the engineering school. Apply.
I wish I could tell every student, it doesn't matter that it's the president of whatever club in your hometown, if it's a form letter. I'd rather hear from somebody that knows you well and that can tell me about you so I can make a decision, because we can spot form letters. So let me just catch her up a little bit, if you don't mind. So lo que estamos hablando es muy difícil para ser aceptado aquí en la universidad. Así que están diciendo, tenemos que decirlos a los estudiantes que
la realidad.
Sí, pero que hay muchos colegios aquí en el estado y también hay diferentes maneras para llegar aquí, con community college o otras. Y les estoy diciendo también que hay algunos estudiantes que tienen cosas que hicieron en su vida que es importante para saber. Y los diciendo, cuando los estudiantes, lo que dijo la señora allí es, enséñanos cómo ayudar a nuestros estudiantes market themselves, así que cómo se pueden, qué tienen que decir para que y lo que estoy diciendo es, lo que les recomiendo es, no es importante que es el título más importante en la ciudad para hacer la carta de recomendación, si va a ser un form letter. Mejor quiero saber de alguien que te conoce y sabe la realidad, lo que tienes, sí, para hacer la decisión. I think I put you up. Is anybody who speaks both languages, did I forget something? Did I get it all? Okay, good.
The good news is that the affiliated universities, UT San Antonio, UT Pan Am, UT Dallas, are really raising their level of play.
Yeah.
And they are excellent schools for our kids as alternatives and for other Texans.
Yeah.
So there's good news in all of that.
There is good news. UT Dallas is very, very well regarded. We've done a phenomenal job with UT El Paso, UT San Antonio. You're right. There are, and these schools are respected nationally. So we do have, tenemos muchas escuelas buenas aquí. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say about that too. Like at my son's school, the top person, she's going to Rice, and number 2, I think, is going here, and number 3 is going to A&M.
Yeah.
So the schools are very good that we have in Texas.
Yeah, the interesting thing though is that, as I see the numbers, A&M, so I think you saw the numbers last year, 88% of the freshmen that started last year came in under the top 10% rule. That means we only had discretion with 12%. For A&M, it was, less than 30% of their starting class was top 10%ers. They have a lot of wiggle room that we don't have. El año pasado, de los estudiantes que empezaron aquí, 88% eran del top 10%, o 8% now. A&M, menos de un tercio. Así que ellos tienen mucho más lugar para
aceptar
a otros estudiantes.
Una pregunta, por ejemplo, un estudiante, mi hijo, quiere graduarse de aquí, pero quiere estudiar en México. O sea, él checó en internet que hay un intercambio con el ITAM y Business, la McCombs, la escuela de business, pero él no sabe el camino para que le ayuden aquí a llenar su aplicación para ver si puede empezar la carrera en México y venir a graduarse aquí.
So a disclaimer, so what she's asking is her son wants to be a UT grad, but he also wants to get some international experience, so he wants to start at a school that we have a partnership with, but he doesn't know the way to get to start that school and then come here. I should have probably said this at the beginning, I don't work for the University of Texas. I do this because I love my home state and it gets me home. And so this is what I'm doing just to help the president with his agenda. And you'll get to meet President Powers at lunch. So I can't, I'm more trying to be your advocate within the campus versus, now trust me, whenever I speak with anybody, I brag about my alma mater, but I'm not an expert at UT Austin. I'm trying to be the voice for the student and families in Texas when tough decisions are made here. No soy empleada de la universidad.
No sabe.
No, así.
O mi hijo sabe por internet, él ya checó que hay una, no sé cómo le llamen, como...
We have articulation agreements, es lo que se dicen.
Con esa escuela en específico.
So the Macomb school, Macomb gives them that information. So anyway, so that's why I'm so grateful when people like you are willing to meet with me, because you guys are helping me do my job better, and yet I don't carry a title for this university.
I could answer that real quick. I'm actually a UT grad, but I didn't come here as an undergrad. I came here as a grad student. So I understand that there's kids. I wish I could have graduated, you know, my undergrad here. I studied in El Paso. I went to school at UTEP.
Okay.
And they do inform you very well about the transfer. And you know, at the time I wasn't able to transfer. I wish I could have. But I think, you know, everybody sees it as the 4 years and that's it, and that's my only chance. There's also the opportunity to continue later on. So, you know, and I was able to I studied social work, so I didn't have the school I think is, you know, maybe it's not as competitive as some of the other schools. But I was able to still continue and do what the career that I wanted to do and still come to UT, you know, but as a graduate student, and I still graduated from it.
That you're right. This is one of the best schools of social work in the United States.
So I mean, you know, it doesn't always necessarily have to end at the 4 years.
Okay,
that is the other option.
Great point. So what I wanted to ask, to the point that you made earlier, we talked a lot, and the students talked a lot all week about exposure to different types of professionals and how important it was for them, particularly that night that it was so sweltering hot, and I had 4 panelists, and I made sure they were all young, you know, in their 20s, so they could identify with them. And we had, you know, somebody that run political campaigns and elected office. We have a lawyer. We have Ronnie. We had an entrepreneur, a guy that does financial advising, and we had a corporate person. And the questions didn't stop. But you made the point earlier that many times it's what mom and dad or dad did, or the people that are respected in the community. And so those are, and at least I know, we tend to say it's doctor, lawyer, you know, there's a few of those respected professions. How, especially with the way the world is changing, what's the best way to get information to parents about all the careers that are out there and all the careers that are possible? She made the point earlier, she wished the guidance counselors would have said to the students, from what we've seen, this is what you could be good at. If that's not going to happen, we parents give a lot of cues to our kids. Is there a way to get information to you, or do you feel you know enough about all the professions that are out there, all the companies that are hiring, the types of people that they hire? Is that information that would be valuable to a parent? While you think about it, let me translate really quickly. Lo que les estoy preguntando, estamos hablando de los estudiantes que ellos no saben cuáles carreras son posibles. Tú dijiste antes, los guidance counselors deben de decirles, tú puedes ser bueno en esto. Los padres y las madres saben de todas las carreras que existen y las compañías que están empleando y los tipos de trabajo. Y es posible que los padres pueden hacer los que les dicen a los hijos, tú puedes hacer esto o esto o esto. ¿Es importante para ustedes? So, is it important? So I got one yes vote. How important is career awareness and hiring trends in you and the advice you want to give your kids? Is that helpful? Very. Very? So now here comes a hard question. I'm sorry. Okay.
We're teachers. We're from the Valley, and our counselors are staff doing other stuff. Right. They really can't get information. All our information usually goes to our financial aid officer, and she's handling the kids, you know. You can hear on the intercom, make sure you finish your FAFSA, make sure you come pick up this and all that other stuff. But if the parents can go to the financial aid officer, because all the schools have one, that's where all the information's at. And then just the kids, the parents got to get after the kids, hey, you need to go do this, you need to go do this, because a lot of kids don't do it. I mean, we tell our seniors, hey, did you go fill that out? Did you go pick that up? Okay, we'll take off right now, go get it, we'll fill it out. And we're getting them to it. And my thing was, a lot of kids want to come to UT or go to A&M or go to Rice, you know, and I tell them, look, as long as you get an education, it doesn't matter where you go. Yeah. If you want to start at Pan Am, we had a guy from UTSA talk to one of our kids because she wants to go to UTSA, one of my soccer kids, and the guy told her, look, if you want to come to UTSA, that's great, but you're better off at Pan Am because you're going to get the same thing that you're going to study, you can get it at Pan Am without having to make that financial stuff. You can transfer later, or you can transfer to UT, but it's better if you just stay home. And a lot of kids don't understand that they all want to come over here because they get away from home, or they want to go to A&M or Texas Tech. But sometimes the college that's close to you will give you the same education and what you want. We have one of our students that went to Notre Dame to become a teacher, where she could have just stayed at Edinburgh and got a degree from Pan Am.
I don't know if you've heard this, but I'm on the board of trustees of the University of Notre Dame, so I love it when I see Texans at the
We
University
got
of
one.
Notre Dame.
She wants to be a lawyer, so she's going over there.
Yeah.
Do you move them up to the top of the admittance list?
I'm on the board of trustees of the university. They don't let us get involved in those decisions, but I got to tell you, when we get our board presentations and we talk about the states and what states are represented, I'm the only one that's like for Texas. I will tell you, to the point that he was making, I think I had a lot of sad days when I worked for President Bush as the undersecretary, but I think the toughest one for me to have an answer, I'll never forget it. I was at Iowa State University, of all places, and as the students introduced themselves to me, one young man had just graduated the preceding week, and he was just sticking around, and he thought, I'll come talk to her. And I said, you know what? Serve as an inspiration to your colleagues. What is the one thing that you're thinking right now? And his answer to me was, I wish I'd started in a community college, because I'm looking right now at my first payment on my student loans. And I'm thinking, had I stayed home those first 2 years, I probably would have gotten the same education, transferred in, I'd have still walked across that stage, but I would have owed probably $15,000 less in student loans. I didn't have an answer for that. And I think you're right. I think we need to educate more of us about the different pathways so that you don't put yourself in a situation that you're not going to be able to support or maintain later, or that's going to have you graduating with too much debt, and it's going to influence the type of job that you need to have to be able to afford those payments. So I do think we need to get a better job about those alternate pathways that you talked about to get here. So I was asking about jobs and careers. So here comes the hard question. Should we talk about jobs that are available in this country with all the companies that are hiring in this country, or do we need to keep it statewide? I want to make sure that we engage parents through this, not disengage parents through this.
I think in the country, I have a question. He spoke about financial aid, and yeah, at the high schools they hear a lot about that. But do we hear about maybe job fairs? Well, they're already in college when they see about job fairs. But no, I think if they're educated on what is needed, they may want to be I don't know, I want to go cut hair. There's millions of people that cut hair. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe that's not a need. That's not what we need right now. What jobs are available right now that you need, that the world needs right now?
So let me just play a fun with game, just because this is the stuff I've done for the last 15, 16 years. Can you tell me, the good news is the college hiring market has rebounded. 2011 turned the trend around. So more kids are going to be hired out of college. College graduates are going to have jobs this year than last year. Can anybody tell me the #1 company that's hiring college graduates in 2011? The #1 company.
Facebook.
I'm sorry? Facebook. No, actually, I live in San Francisco. They're right there in Silicon Valley. It's actually a small operation. It's curious. This is one of those where the students grew that one. Just take a wild shot at what the #1 company is in the United States of America.
Boeing?
Nope. Boeing doesn't even make the top 25. Now, for graduate students, Boeing is in the top 20.
Walmart.
Walmart? Not Walmart.
Target.
Not Target. Target, wait, let me Target is in the top 10 for undergraduate and in the top 5 for graduate. So Target is hiring college graduates, not #1. No, not Dell.
Foreign company.
All right. No, it's not a foreign company. It's not a foreign company. U.S. companies. All right, you want the answer? Enterprise. Enterprise Rent-A-Car is hiring 11,000 college graduates this year. I went over to visit. To say, what? At least when I ran the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, the top hires were what you would expect. The pharmaceuticals, the automotive industry, and the big banks, right? So I'm used to seeing those names up there. It's the Fortune 10, right? So I called on Enterprise and I said, why do you need 11,000 college graduates? So think about the Enterprise business model. They were the first to say, you don't have to be at the airport to rent a car. You don't have to come pick it up from us. We'll come bring the car to you, right? So they've developed this franchise model. Now I will tell you, it's brutal. So you as a young student, if you choose them to graduate, the good news is once you're a franchise owner, you make a really good salary. Now to get there it's tough, but the more franchises they have closer to people who want a rental car, then the bigger their company grows. So they want to hire more college graduates, as their track record has shown through their apprenticeship program to get from entry level to franchise owner. It's tough. I mean, it's like you run your own P&L. If a car comes back dinged and you didn't notice it, it comes out of you and your, bonus. So they discovered college graduates were the ones that were making it faster up, and they want more franchises. So they're hiring a lot of college graduates. So enterprise rental car. Guess who the number 2 is? This one you will know. I know you'll know. Verizon. How many malls do you go to, whether it's a strip mall or a big mall? Verizon knows as many stores as it has out there. That means that if you see them all the time, it's going to be easier. You hear all the commercials nationally, but if you're going to have an issue with your phone, you want to be able to walk to a place that's going to be able to tell you what's wrong with it or to give you the fix. So Verizon, it's completely changed. So what do you major in if you're going to go work at Enterprise? What do you major in if you're going to go work at Verizon? It's the point somebody made, or you made earlier. You can major in a lot of things and find a good job. But I don't think a lot of people know that. I think a lot of people think, if I'm going to go work at Bank of America, I've got to be a business major specializing in finance. If I'm going to go work at Procter & Gamble, I've either got to be in advertising or I've got to be in marketing, because it's got to be consumer goods. Companies are shaking it up. Companies are looking for the student that shows maturity, that can work in large teams, that shows leadership, time management, that can bring a healthy perspective. And that's the information that, I don't know if this is going to be helpful to you or not, that I just told you all of this stuff, but anyway, that's the type of information that I find is not getting out to people. And so I'm hearing from you that you think it would be important to get information about that. Does that have to come from the parents, or is there other ways for us to get that information to you? I don't want to make these parents, have to come with 100 things to cover in a town hall meeting with you guys. I want them to talk about the things that are most important to you. So at the end, we're going to rank, what's the most important thing. But so, assuming we can't get everything, what are other ways for us, for the University of Texas, to create that information so that parents know what's out there for kids?
But a website's an obvious place, right? But you want a website that's organized and very informative and trusted. Right? You asked that in the beginning, if we can trust you. There's a lot of websites out there. You want one that's trusted, that has good data.
Okay. Okay. Other ways.
Well, I don't know what to call it, but when you have job fairs, it's usually either you are already out of school or just about to get out of school, so you're looking for a job or will be looking for a job. Right. But if there is some sort of a program, like a fair that would happen midway while you're in school, that will let you know what these big names, like a doctor, cardiologist or whatever, or things that you think are cool, but really when you get out there, after you've majored in them, you find that you can't go anywhere with them. Like if there are some kind of fairs while you're in school that will tell you what this thing that you're hearing would mean later, or talk about you could actually get to enterprise. And I chuckled when you said enterprise. I'm like, driving around the car. But now when you say that you could work your way up to owning one, that's another thing I would consider. So if there is a way to, some sort of a fair or something that would bring awareness to the students while they're in school, what the careers mean, that would be a better thing.
So I know we advertised that this was going to end at 1 to give you a little bit of a break to connect with your students. So we're going to wrap up shortly. I've got 2 questions that I want to finish with. I'm going to tell you what they are because I'm going to translate, because I've been talking for a long time without translating. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is there anything else that you think I should know before we break? Things that you thought we might talk about that we haven't touched on. And then the second is, I'm going to ask you to give me kind of a 1, 2, 3 on the most important things that we can equip our parents if we create this Parent Speakers Bureau, that we should equip them to talk to you about. So maybe think about both of those while I translate. Hablamos mucho y no te dije que estamos hablando, ¿verdad? Estamos hablando las carreras las compañías que tienen trabajo, y les dije que era Enterprise, que es Verizon, compañías que no tienes que estudiar nomás una cosa, puedes estudiar muchas cosas y trabajar con esas compañías. Así que we're going to wrap up, vamos a completar aquí con las preguntas. All right, so first, anything else that you would like to talk about, or any question that you would have for me, given what your students have been through in Subiendo,
or given the work that I'm doing for my alma mater. Anything else that you want to talk to me about or you have a question?
Did the kids get talked about like financial management of their money once they get to college, getting into student loans, the kind of responsibility that brings, like, you know, was discussed.
Yeah.
You get out of college, you get a job, and now you have $1,000 payment you're making too. Yeah. So I don't know if those things were discussed with them.
So Monday morning, the first seminar that they had, God bless them, after their first Sunday night with all the excitement and a lot of them staying up late, as only UT could name it, they went through Bevonomics, which is teaching them economics, and it talked about a lot of that. And then we also had, you'll meet him at lunch, one of my colleagues on the advisory board does financial counseling. So he took it a step further. Bevonomics really was about what you just talked about, smart money management while you're in college. Wolfgang Niedert is his name. Wolfgang then did a seminar on, okay, and now once you leave college and you're looking at earning a paycheck and credit cards, you're going to get a ton of applications, smart debt, dumb debt, that kind of stuff. So they got a little bit of, I'm not saying that we answered every question, and I don't know if in an hour and a half, students, you know, are going to pay attention to everything we said, but they got that, and they have a workbook from it. Other questions you would have about your students' experience or about the work that I'm doing for UT? All right, so the top, if we're gonna invest in having a speakers bureau of parents and you know, alumni and students, if we get them all accepted, the concept papers, what are the top 3 things that they should talk about? Just because I know in a session with Q&A, you know, we'll probably with 3 topics take up an hour and a half, so that's about all we can cover. So I don't know if somebody wants to throw out a proposal or if you want me to hold up topics and people vote.
Is college affordable?
Is college affordable? How many would vote for that as number 1? Is college affordable? So es el podemos podemos pagar para una graduación universitaria para el resto. All right, so is college affordable is one topic. Should it be among the top 3? Let me not ask you to go for number 1. Is college affordable? Maybe can I change the question a little bit? How about how can I make college affordable for my children? Should that be one of the top 3? Can I make college affordable? All right, all right. Sí, sí. Very good. All right. Other suggestions?
Career awareness.
Career awareness.
Before they leave high school.
Before they
like what you just told us right now. Enterprise. I mean, knowing who's hiring right now and what they're looking for.
Okay. All right. So let me turn it into a question. I'm doing my Jeopardy invitation here. Turning it into the form of a question. So what jobs? So we can take several possibilities here. So I'm going to throw out several. So this we have to pay attention. Number 1, we could answer the question, what jobs, what companies are hiring and what are their criteria? That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, what jobs are possible with what types of degrees? Another is, if my kid is good at X, what are the jobs that they're good, what are the careers that would be interesting to them? So of those 3, which one is more appealing?
I think the second one was
somebody who's smarter than me remind me what my second one was.
Like the degree tying to
tying degrees to different types of careers.
Correct.
Yeah, and you know, I did focus groups here on campus recently, and a lot of kids believe that the only major you can have to go to medical school is biology. They don't realize that there are a lot of different majors that can make their way to medical school. They also believe that a business degree is the only way to get into corporate America, and that isn't the case. So
I have a kid who's interested in math and science, and he thinks he needs to be an engineer to get a job, and he can go be a math major or physics major.
Oh gosh, yeah, and a lot of companies are hiring in those fields.
But there's a lot of focus because like, you have to be a doctor or an engineer or something.
Okay. All right, so how good momentum for, or how do you feel about the proposal was, what jobs are possible with what types of fields, and then just all the ancillary stuff that we just talked about. So let's segundo.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that, I agree, is kind of helping the kids to pursue their dreams. Sometimes we constrain our kids based on wherever the job growth is, wherever the companies that hire to today. Well, let me tell you, 7 years from now, this is going to change, one. And second, they need to be confident of what they are good at and go for it. Probably the answer is not this is cool. Probably the answer is MIT. Why not? Okay, London School of Economics. Really, I just want them to make sure that they trust on what they want and what they believe help them to pursue those dreams.
It's an excellent nuance, and thank you for bringing that up. You're right, I hadn't stopped to think about it. If we only talk about what's possible or what's hiring today, then we limit ourselves.
Yeah.
And it really ought to be what you suggested. What fields of study make what possible? That way people are excited about possibilities versus constraining themselves to what's open today. Okay, so that's a second area. All right, we get one more.
I think something to do with College 101 admissions or something like that.
I like hers about marketing yourself and
marketing yourself.
How you apply and the criteria for applications for different schools.
Okay, and then including maybe the transitions from the different opportunities, community college, so the application process, the admissions criteria.
What courses you need to be taken, you know, reality, GPAs, all of that.
So I'm hearing three different things. How do I make myself competitive for college? What are the requirements for me that I have to absolutely meet to be able to get to college? But also, then, based on my situation, what are the different pathways that are available to me to get my end result?
Diagram.
Yeah, okay, all right. So but it's inclusive in that is your idea of making sure that kids understand what are the requirements and how do I make myself distinguishable to any university that I'm applying to. Yes? All right. All right. I'm at College 101. Thank you very much. I was thinking, what notes can I take so that I can remind myself later what it meant? Market. Okay. I just can't tell you. I know that you guys, many of you drove long distances to get here, and you were anxious to see your children right away. I can promise you that they were running late at the Capitol. Students have a lot of questions, and we don't like to shut them off, so they probably are just wrapping up, or maybe they should have wrapped up their last presentation maybe 5 minutes ago, and so by the time they get on the buses and come here. But I just thank you for signing up to do this and volunteering to do this when you didn't know what it was all about. It means a lot to me. Thank you, more importantly, for the jobs you've done in raising your students. As I mentioned at the beginning, last year was so special with our pilot. We thought we'll never feel this terrific again. And we were leaving the dinner last night, and the host for the dinner had a wonderful surprise. They brought in the mariachi band that won national honors for the best mariachi band. These kids were singing and dancing like they were the best singers in the world, like they were the best dancers in the world. And we had not let them relax the entire time. So I'm thinking they had to leave that and then go back to their dorm rooms and work on their policy recommendations that they delivered this morning. And they walked in this morning to the Capitol, and you would have been so proud to see them get off the buses and the way they marched into the Capitol, like they were the elected officials. You've done a phenomenal job in raising your kids. I wish, maybe we should do a little video to send to you guys, but you would have been bursting at the seams, not only to see them from the get-go, but the growth. I mean, 4 days. The growth in the way they've conducted themselves, the professional women. Today, this is something really simple. We gave them a networking class. And even from yesterday, when people were catching on, I need to come up, look you in the eye, introduce myself, and give you my business card. Today, they were, we didn't mean to do this, but we were waiting for them to show up, and they all came and they stuck their hand up because they knew that the handshake was important, and they were all like, it's like they all got the same lesson on just how much pressure to put on the handshake. And they walked in and they were shaking hands on both sides like they were politicians, like they were the elected officials walking in there. You've done a phenomenal job. And many times you don't get thanked enough, so let me just pat you on the back and say, go home and say, I did a great job with this kid. So anyway, thank you very much for the time you gave me.